We return, we return, we return, return again. We return, we return, we return, return again and again to love. We return, we return, we return, we return, return again. We return, we return, we return, we return, we return, return again and again to you.
Shana Tovah.
Shana Tovah.
It's so nice to see all of you who are here with us in the room where it happens. And welcome to those of you just waking up with a cup of coffee at home. Hine Matovu Manaim. How beautiful it is for us to be together. I'm Rabbi Melinda Penkin.
I'm Cantor Wally Shackett-Briskin.
And I'm Cantor Lisa Levine.
And we are so happy to pray with you this morning. One note, my mother taught me always to get really dressed up for services. And many of you went the entire year without perhaps putting on pants, no judgment. I went the entire year wearing flip-flops. And I was so excited this morning to put my shoes back on. But last night I had an altercation with a door and I broke my pinky toe. And so I have my flip-flops back on. So
Yay!
I know. So please, in case you're wondering why this crazy rabbi wears flip-flops, I don't usually do this. Take a moment, find a new face around you, say Shana Tovah, introduce yourself. If you're at home, find something
Shana
beautiful
Tovah.
around you that
You're
is
not a new face, but
lovely.
I can't see your face.
Shana Tovah, really? Shana Tovah.
Shana Tovah. Shana Tovah.
Just a few words of introduction. First of all, our Mishkan HaNefesh, if you have it, is a beautiful, beautiful prayer book that is full and rich, and so we encourage you to explore it and look at all the different readings and flip through it and enjoy it and allow it to enhance your worship today. We know that there are many ways to ascend, both physically and spiritually, and so when we say please rise in whatever way best fits you. We are combining traditions between two congregations, and even if things were normal, they're not really normal in any way due to the pandemic right now. And so just remember that new traditions can be gifts that we share with one another if we open our hearts and minds to them. In Pirkei Avot, we learn that we're all responsible one for another. We all help to set a beautiful worship space. So please take a moment now, just check your phones, make sure they are off or in silent mode so as not to disturb our worship. And please remember every once in a while to just check your mask, make sure it's over your nose and covering all the parts that it should. In case you're wondering, because of our protocols around COVID, we won't have aliyot today. Usually both traditions have people participating. We don't. And our shofar service will be outside, just so that you're not surprised. A few thank yous before we begin to Stuart, Martine, Derek, Jacob, Lou, Jane, and Erwin, and to Heather and Marion, all of those who've been working behind the scenes to make sure that the high school was ready. A thank you to my husband, Glenn, for streaming today, and my son, Micah, who is his best boy, to Tony, Tommy, and Vinny, our sound guys, and certainly to our wonderful and amazing volunteer band. Thank you so much for adding your voices today. And I'm joined by these two power women, Tamima Grinvald and Jennifer Fessler, our presidents, on the Bima today in worship. So take a deep breath. Just feel yourself sitting where you are and take a few moments to just settle in. Page 110, we begin our service with the words of Matovu. And it's funny that these words make their way into the prayer book because they come from a non-Israelite, Balaam, a prophet, who was hired by an angry king to curse the Jewish people. But when he looked out, he saw the Jews encamped, and only words of blessing could come out of his mouth. He said, Matovu o halecha Yaakov, how beautiful are your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling places, O Israel. The morning prayers begin with these words, reminders that though sometimes we may want to curse others, to judge, to criticize or belittle, if we look up and really look and see the beauty, it's just as easy to bring words of blessing. Matovu is a practice a daily reminder to see the good and to tell the world about it. Page 121. Let's read together. Said Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev, in every action, we must regard our own body as the Holy of Holies, a part of the supreme power on earth, that is, a manifestation of the divine. Whenever we lift our hands to do a deed, let us consider them to be God's instrument. Page 122.
Tovah Natata bi
How to give thanks. Is it enough to nod quietly or make a silent gesture with your hands? Is it sufficient to know in your heart that you understand what your blessings are? What if you danced and sang them? What if you said it with a blast of shofar? And what if you brought the bring of the harp and lyre and the toot of the flute and the bang on the drum and the crash of the cymbals and the strum of the guitar? What if your gratitude became an orchestra of praise, each note rising in thanks to God? That is how you give thanks. Hallelujah.
1, 2, 3,
Page
4, 5,
135.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Page 142, please rise.
Ya la 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 la. 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 Ya la la la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la la.
la
Page 145. We join together. Hello, sun in my face. Hello, you who make the morning and spread it over the fields and into the faces of the tulips and the nodding morning glories and into the windows of even the miserable and the crotchety. Best preacher that ever was, dear star that just happens to be where you are in the universe, to keep us from ever darkness, to ease us with warm touching, to hold us in the great hands of light. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Watch now how I start the day in happiness, in kindness. 146. Page 147. I am the blossom pressed in a book, found again after 200 years. I am the maker, the lover, and the keeper. When the young girl who starves sits down to a table, she will sit beside me. I am food on the prisoner's plate. I am water rushing to the wellhead, filling the pitcher until it spills. I am the patient gardener of the dry, weedy garden. I am the stone step, the latch, and the working hinge. I am the heart contracted by joy, the longest hair white before the rest. I am there in the basket of fruit presented to the widow. I am the musk rose opening, unattended, the fern on the boggy summit. I am the one whose love overcomes you, already with you, when you think to call my name. Page 150. page 163, we read together at the bottom. Remember the stories of slavery, and you will never stop working for freedom. Remember their fear at the edge of the sea, and self-doubt will never defeat you. Remember when desperation turned to celebration, and you will never let go of hope. Remember the words of the Baal Shem Tov. Forgetfulness leads to exile. Remembrance is the secret of redemption. 164. Put out your hand, reach all the way back, not in space, but in time, not with movement, but with words of prayer. You will find the hands of Abraham and Sarah, old yet strong, ready to grasp yours. These words we utter tell an ancient old story. They reached out to the future. We reach back to the past. And for the briefest moment in prayer, we are linked hand in history and destiny across 2,000 years. And in this moment, we stand together. Please rise, page 166.
Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, v'Elohei avoteinu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. זוכרנו, זוכרנו לחיים, זוכרנו, זוכרנו לחיים, זוכרנו לחיים, מלך חפץ בחיים, וכותבנו בספר החיים, וכותבנו בספר החיים, וכותבנו בספר החיים, למענך אלוהים חיים. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה.
אתה
גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הטל, מחכה לחיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומידו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה. מי כמוך אל הרחמים, אל הרחמים, זוכר יצוריו לחיים ברחמים, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי הכל.
Please be seated. Page 175. We join together. Let us embrace the day and its holiness, for this day is a throne of goodness and power. When the people of Israel do God's will, they strengthen God's power on high. But when the people of Israel fail to do God's will, they weaken, if one might say it, God's great power on high. So let this day recall your power and ours. Let it remind us of our promises kept and broken, as we remind you of yours. Let this day be a throne of forgiveness, for today we are the accountants of our souls, the navigators of our hearts, seeking wholeness and new direction. And we seek you through signs of your presence in the arc of sacred history. I make this covenant not with you alone, but with those who are standing here with us this day, and with those who are not. God of ages past and future, God of this day, as you were with our mothers and fathers, be with us as well.
Who shall live and who shall die? Who by water and who by fire? Destiny beyond our sight, directed by a higher power. Unitane toke, edishatayo, iunaraveyo. Unity nase, afuteka,
Page 176 together. And so a great shofar will cry, Tekiah. A still small voice will be heard. Angels in a whirl of fear and trembling will say, Behold the day of judgment, for they too are judged. In your eyes even they are not blameless. All who come into the world pass before you like sheep before their shepherd. As a shepherd considers the flock when it passes beneath the staff, you count and consider every life. You set bounds, you decide destiny, you inscribe judgments.
Rosh Hashanah Yikatevun Uv'yom Tzom Kippur Uv'yom Tzom Kippur Yechatemun Rosh Hashanah Yikatevun Uv'yom Tzom Kippur Uv'yom Tzom Kippur Yechatemun.
Page 179 together. On Rosh Hashanah, we plunge like swimmers into a sea of words. On Yom Kippur, the sea rises, then crests, and we emerge, sealed by the wax, warmed by the fire of braided candle. The new year is like a trailhead, opening wide before us. The day of fasting, narrow, breathless, so quick to close. We contemplate a new year, and this we know. Some of us will live, and some of us will die. Some will die young, and some very old. Some by water, and some by fire. Some by sword, and some by beast. Some by hunger, and some by thirst. Some by plague, and some by earthquake. Some by stoning, and some by strangling. Some of us will feel at ease. Some will be restless. Some will have peace of mind. Some will have strife. Some will be tranquil. Some will be tormented. Some will be raised high. Some will be brought low. Some will have riches. Some will be impoverished. Even so, the way we act, the way we speak, the way we meet God's image in ourselves and in others, these things have great power to make our lives matter. Therefore, let us make whole the broken shards, green and thick the withering grass. Let the wind fill us with urgency for life. Let dreams give birth to justice and goodness. God of holiness, God of hope, let us glimpse your truth as we attach our hope to yours. Page 180.
Uteshuva, utefila, utsedaka, ma'avirin et roh ha'gezerah.
But through return to the right path, through prayer and righteous giving, we can transcend the harshness of the decree. Page 184, please rise.
Kaddish et shimcha ba'olam, Hashem shemakdishim oto b'shnei marom, kakatuv b'yad nevi'echa, nekara zel ze ve'amar, Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzivaot, Melech haaretz, Kevodo, Adir, Adirenu
Page 192. Please be seated. You are holy, your name is awe, there is nothing divine beyond you. As the prophet Isaiah taught, the source of all might is exalted through justice, the God of holiness made holy through righteousness.
Baruch atah Adonai, HaMelech HaKadosh.
Amen.
Page 195 together. Why am I different from all others? I cried in my loneliness, and 1,000 children's voices piped, why are we different from all other people? But there are no two stones alike in all the universe of pebbles, no two leaves on any tree that are just the same, nor animals, nor birds, nor people. Difference is the mark of the hand of the Creator, and evolution is God's handiwork. Each of us is meant to be ourselves, and each people to be great in its own way. We are different in a universe of differences, swimming in the moving waters of history. We Jews want to be a warm current in an icy river. We want to create a climate for living things. Let us have courage to be thankful for our differences. Let us pray for strength to accept our obligations. Page 196. Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Ya'alev yavo v'yagia v'yera'a v'yeratzeh v'yeshama v'yipaked v'yizacher zichronenu ufikdonenu, v'zichron avotenu v'imotenu, v'zichron Yerushalayim ir kodshecha, v'zichron kol amcha beit Yisrael lefanecha, lefleita, letovah, lechen, ulechesed, ulerachamim, lechayim, uleshalom, biyom hazikaron hazeh. Our God and God of the generations before us, may a memory of us ascend and come before you. May it be heard and seen by you, winning your favor and reaching your awareness, together with the memory of our ancestors, the memory of your sacred city, Jerusalem, and the memory of your people, the family of Israel. May we be remembered for safety, well-being, and favor, for love and compassion, for life and for peace on this day of remembrance.
Zochreinu Adonai Eloheinu bo l'tovah, ufokteinu bo livracha, ve'hoshiyainu bo l'chaim.
Amen.
Eternal our God, remember us,
Amen.
be mindful of us, and
Amen.
redeem us for a life of goodness and blessing.
Amen.
Page 214.
Yevarechecha Adonai ve'yishmerecha, Ya'er Adonai panav elecha
page 216.
Sim Shalom, Sim Shalom,
Sim Shalom.
Sim Shalom, Tovah, Hein v'chesed, Hein v'chesed v'rachamim, Hein v'chesed, Hein v'chesed v'rachamim, Sim Shalom, Tovah uvracha, Sim Shalom, Tovah uvracha, Sim Shalom, Tovah uvracha, Sim Shalom, Tovah uvracha.
Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Amecha. Sim Shalom.
Sim Shalom, Tovah uvracha, Sim Shalom, Tovah uvracha, Sim Shalom, Sim Shalom, Tovah uvracha, Sim Shalom, Tovah Baruch atah Adonai Yosef HaShalom, Shalom, Shalom.
We pause for a moment of silent prayer.
shalom bimroma. Uyaseh shalom aleinu. Oseh shalom bimroma. Uyaseh shalom aleinu. Oseh shalom bimroma.
Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom. Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom. Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom. Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol
Shana Tovah.
Shana Tovah.
For those of you I haven't had the chance to personally meet, I am Jennifer Fessler, and I look forward to meeting all of you personally in the year ahead. Sorry, these lights are low. To be on the bima and look out at so many congregants, as well as knowing there is equally as many online, it is an amazing sight. And as we all know, it's an unusual sight. We rarely all come together like this. So at the risk of leading you to believe I'm confused about which holiday we're observing, I want to ask, why is this night different from all other nights? What special ingredient inspires Jews, inspires us, to come together at the high holidays? We're all drawn here for a reason. Some are here out of respect for tradition or to honor the memory of a family member. Some are here for community. Some are here to pray and to contemplate the teachings of Torah. I, like many of us, am here for a combination of all these things. And yet, all those same reasons can draw us together for any Friday night or Saturday morning. So what brings us together today? As with all Jewish questions, I'm not here to give you the answer. I'm asking you to think about this for yourself, and what better time than the new year? Why do we get involved in temple life? Someone has touched us. We have a challenge in our life. We know somebody who needs extra care. Maybe we're continuing to live a traditional life in which we were raised. Maybe we have children and grandchildren where we want to give some spiritual direction to, and maybe we're involved simply because our neighbor was. But we are here today. Why? Yesterday, you heard Tamima's why and Rabbi's why, and I promise you we did not coordinate our speeches. And yet today, I would love to share my why with you. At the risk of getting too personal, I was married at the age of 21, and I was divorced with 2 young boys by the age of 27. They do always say, listen to your mother. They were right. Instead of wasting time contemplating where I went wrong or being angry with the situation, I spent my energies at seeing where I fit in. My boys and I started to go to Friday night services, not really for any particular reason other than I had no idea what to do with myself on a Friday night. I didn't grow up attending weekly services, but somehow this gave me and my boys a place to go on Friday night, get some peace from the outside world, and even cookies were thrown in, so it kept the complaining to a minimum. We didn't join any specific community, as I didn't yet understand the importance of community and a temple family, so we were visitors to many synagogues. When my oldest son became bar mitzvah age, I knew I wanted to go to the Torah with him. So while growing up in an Orthodox temple, I looked for a Reform congregation and found Temple Shaari Emeth. Whoever started the African proverb, "It takes a village," was spot on. Days after joining Temple Shaari Emeth, I was approached by Anita Miller from our sisterhood and asked to be involved in the sisterhood Shabbat. Why not? I can read Hebrew. I've never led a service before, but how hard can it be? And this is where my why began with my new village. TSC Sisterhood has activities that are social, educational, and has so many opportunities to fill the mitzvah of Tikkun Olam. I was drawn in by this wonderful group of women with all different backgrounds, and I started making new friends, which is tough to do as a single mom. Then I met Sharon Cohen, who at the time was youth director for our Yoshi juniors and seniors. Having kids in that age group, I joined the youth committee, and Temple Shaari Emeth's youth group keep our children involved in so many ways. The activities make our kids love coming to temple, activities such as sushi in the sukkah, midnight run, volunteering for the Perm Carnival, hibachi, and there was even a night of magic, just to name a few of the amazing events our youth directors host. I watched my children enjoy coming to temple and realizing that being Jewish is not just about going to Hebrew school, but it was about having fun with a group of kids with like backgrounds. It was their home away from home, and this made me want to support that connection and get even more involved. My relationship blossomed with Sharon, who is now the director of the ELC, and after helping her out in a difficult year, I had no idea how much I love to teach preschool-age kids. Another moment of finding myself within my village. Then I met Rabbi Penkin, who many of you have already experienced her compassion, her wisdom, her amazing ability to see things from another side. And after a good cry in her office, I always felt stronger and more confident that I can handle the cards that were dealt to me. Rabbi and I developed a relationship where she wouldn't sugarcoat anything. As our working relationship developed, she would apologize for the criticism as I grew into a leader here. Rabbi, don't ever apologize. You have made me a stronger and more confident leader. Thank you. Why do I feel a strong connection to this Jewish community? When I walk through the front doors, I am faced with friends and family. My stress is always left outside. I am with a community who are all in it for the good of the people and surrounding communities, and it quiets down my otherwise chaotic life. I got involved in our social action committee, which feeds and clothes the homeless. They make sure that all of our children who are without otherwise get a gift during the holiday season. We lobby to our senators about important issues and voice our opinions to set policy, and so much more. I was active in the sisterhood, but our men's club and our Renaissance club do the same for others as sisterhood has done for me. We have a caring committee that makes sure the sick in our community has a hot meal. And pre-COVID, we made sure the sick in the hospital had a friendly face to visit. I joined the Shiva Minyan Committee as I felt comfort in sharing the compassion and care that was shared with me. Thank you to Cantor Wally for the training, and I have to say, with a little practice, it's not as hard as it looks. Maybe at first I had no idea what my why was. However, getting involved in this community and seeing what we stand for as a people, I realized it is so much larger becoming a part of me. And I am certain that I am involved because I love being Jewish. I love helping others. I want to help others ease others' loneliness or pain. I want to celebrate others' milestones and simchas. And now as president, I want to lead the congregation to carry on the strength of Judaism in our community. As we celebrate the new year, I challenge you to find your why. I challenge you to get involved somehow. Maybe it's simply coming to one more Friday night service that you didn't come to before. Maybe you explore an adult education series. Maybe it is attending one of our open board meetings. I challenge you to show your children and grandchildren that being part of a Jewish community is important to continue our strength as people. And maybe along your journey, this community will touch you in the way it has touched me. You are never too old to find your village. On Sunday, September 26th, we will be having a Zoom committee open house. During this meeting, we will introduce all of the many ways to get involved here at Temple Shaari Emeth. I learned that Zoom has no max capacity, so I hope to see many of you there, and look forward to working with you to continue to strengthen our community inside our temple and in our surrounding communities. Please visit our website and look at the many events already planned. Sukkot will be here in a blink. Save the dates for scotch and soup in the sukkah, and our youth is already planning their Sukkot events with pizza. Yes, it does seem that all of our events revolve around food, but who doesn't love to eat? Our Sukkot family service will be on Monday, September 20th, and the following Monday, September 27th, we'll have our Simchat Torah family service. Again, growing up Orthodox community, I remember the smile it put on my mom's face to be able to carry the Torah for the first time. Please join us. This afternoon, we will be having our children's service outdoors at the temple at 3 o'clock. I'm so happy that we're able to add additional services outside to keep our children safe. We will also be outdoors for Tashlich service tomorrow at 12 o'clock at Thompson Grove Park in Monroe. One more announcement before they turn my microphone off. As you leave today, please take a bag to fill with food for our Yom Kippur food drive, along with the flyer of our needs this year. Some of our more important requests are cooking oil, coffee, that's definitely an important one, protein drinks, and paper products. It is a tradition in Judaism to make sure that the hungry are fed. As Rabbi mentioned last night, Open Door will be picking up here on Yom Kippur, and it would be amazing for them to have to make 8, 9, 10 or more trips. And for those of you joining us virtually, please drop off your donations at the temple. Any donation, small or large, is greatly appreciated. Let me end by sharing a prayer with you that was sent to me by a friend. May this year be a year of aches and pains. May your feet hurt from dancing at so many simchas. May your arms ache from carrying many babies and lending support to our elders. May your cheeks be sore from smiling too wide. May your palms swell from clapping with nachas. May your back tire from schlepping bags, packages, and deliveries to help a friend or the homeless. May your eyes sting from tears of sadness and joy. May your heart hurt for those who hurt. And may your head spin from the joy of seeing the answer to all of your prayers. The Shana Tovah, a happy and healthy new year to all of you.
I just want to remind you, I'm going to fill my car so much with food that I won't be able to see out the back. Please join me in that. Page 23.
Page 223.
223. Yes, let's add 200 to that. 223. We continue with Avinu Malkeinu. Please rise. Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Kolaynu.
Avinu Malkeinu, Almighty and Merciful One, hear our voice.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chatanu Lefanecha.
Avinu Malkeinu, we have strayed and sinned before you.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chamol Aleinu ve'al Olaleinu v'tapenu.
Avinu Malkeinu, have compassion on us and on our families.
Avinu Malkeinu, Kale Dever v'cherev v'ra'av me'aleinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, halt the onslaught of sickness, violence, and hunger.
Avinu Malkeinu, Kale kol tsar umastin me'aleinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, halt the reign of those who cause pain and terror.
Avinu Malkeinu, kotvenu b'sefer chayim tovim.
Avinu Malkeinu, enter our names in the book of lives well lived.
Avinu Malkeinu, chadesh aleinu shana tovah.
Avinu Malkeinu, renew for us a year of goodness.
Avinu Malkeinu, chanenu v'anenu ki ein banu ma'asim. Aseh imanu tzedakah v'chesed v'hoshienu.
Avinu Malkeinu, almighty and merciful, answer us with grace, for our deeds are wanting. Save us through acts of justice and love.
Avinu Malkeinu, Kolaynu v'aneinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Kolaynu v'aneinu, ki ein banu masi. Aseh imanu, tzedaka v'chesed. Aseh imanu, tzedaka v'chesed, ve'oshienu. Avinu Malkeinu, Kolaynu v'aneinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Kolaynu v'aneinu, ki ein banu masi.
Page 227.
Ein kamocha v'Elohim Adonai, ve'en kema'asecha, malchutecha malchut kol olamim, umemshaltecha bechol dor v'ador.
Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed. Adonai oz le'amo yiten, Adonai yivarech et amo b'shalom. Adonai, Adonai, erachu v'chanun Adonai. Adonai, Adonai, erachu v'chanun Adonai.
Erech apayim v'rav chesed, Emeth Adonai, notzer chesed lalafim, notzer avon v'fesha, v'chatzah v'nakeh. Adonai, Adonai, yerachum v'chanun Adonai. Adonai, Adonai,
Erachum v'chanun Adonai.
Erech apayim v'rav chesed, Emeth Adonai, notzer chesed lalafim, notzer avon v'fesha, v'chatzah v'nakeh. Adonai, Adonai, yerachum v'chanun Adonai.
Adonai, Adonai, erachum v'chanun Adonai.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh v'nora Shemo. Gadol Adonai iti, uneromema Shemo yachdav. Lecha Adonai agdula v'agvura v'tiferet, v'hanetzach v'haor. Iko b'shamayim u'va'aretz, Iko b'shamayim u'va'aretz.
seated. Oi. Rosh Hashanah every year we read the Akedah, the story of Abraham, who is asked by God to sacrifice his son, the son that he waited a really, really, really long time to have in his old age. There is a beautiful poem by Yehuda Amichai that talks about who's the real hero in this story. How many of you think that it's Abraham, that he's the real hero of the Akedah because he's willing to sacrifice his son to God? Raise your hand. Good. Okay, how many of you think it's Isaac because he wasn't 13 years old. He was 37 when this story took place. So he is a willing sacrifice. So how many of you think Isaac, who willingly offers himself up, that he's the real hero? Okay, I see maybe like 2, 3. Now, the last character in the story is the ram, who is stuck in the thicket. And he, in the end, becomes the offering in place of Isaac. And we read this story as a polemic against child sacrifice, that if you think God is calling you to sacrifice your child, you're wrong. And Judaism inserts into history a new way of sacrificing to God by sacrificing rams and animals instead. Now, how many of you think that it is the ram who is the one who is the hero? And how many of you think there are no heroes in this story? That is a valid point as well. Well, Yehuda Amichai says that it's the ram who's stuck in the thicket. And sometimes when we're stuck, we offer new opportunities. We certainly have felt that this year, right? With COVID, we were stuck. And yet we came up with new ways of interacting in the world. So, for the Aliyah today, since we're not calling individuals up, if you have felt stuck at all this year or at any other point in your life, please rise and join in blessing the Torah.
Page 230. Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai hamvorach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamvorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Page 240. Vayhi achar hadvarim ha'ele. It came to pass after these things, these words, these discussions. Veha Elohim nisa et Avraham, that God tested Abraham. Vayomer elav, and said to him, Avraham, Abraham. Vayomer hineni, and Abraham said, Hineni, here I am, I'm ready. Vayomer kachna et bincha et yechidcha. God said, take your son, your only one, your beloved, asher ahavta, the one that you love, et Yitzchak, take Isaac. V'lech lecha el eretz haMoriah, and go to the land of Moriah, v'ha'alehu sham le'olah, and take him up there as an offering. Al echad heharim asher amar alecha, on one of the mountains that I will show you. Vayashkem Avraham baboker, Abraham awoke really early in the morning. Vayachavosh et chamoro, he saddled up his donkey. Vayikach et shnei na'arav ito, and he took 2 of his lads with him. Ve'et Yitzchak beno, and Isaac his son. Vayavak atzei olah, and he chopped up the wood. Vayakom vayelech, and he got up and he went out. El hamakom asher amar lo ha'elohim, to the place that God would show him. Bayom hashlishi, on the 3rd day, vayisa Avraham et einav, Abraham lifted up his eyes, vayar et hamakom merachok, and he saw the place from afar. Rashi tells us there was a cloud on it, telling him it was the right place. Vayomer Avraham el na'arav, and Abraham spoke to the two lads, the two servants that were with him, Shvu lachem po, sit here, im hachamor, you stay with the donkey, v'ani v'hana'ar nelcha adko, and I and the boy will go over there, v'nishtachaveh v'nashuva. We're going to worship, and we will return. You think he knew that he would come back with Isaac? Maybe. V'nashuva aleichem, and we will return to you. Vayikach Avraham et atzeh ha'olah. He took the wood for the offering, vayasem al Yitzchak, and he put it upon Isaac. Isaac had to carry the wood for his own offering, beno, on Isaac, his son. Vayikach biado et ha'esh ve'et ha'ma'achelet. He took in his hand the fire and the knife. Vayelchu shnehem yachdav, and the two of them walked together. Vayomer Yitzchak el Avraham aviv, and Isaac asked his father Abraham, Vayomer, saying, Avi, my father. Vayomer Hineni. And Abraham responds Hineni to his son in the same way that he responds Hineni to God. Here I am, I'm present for you, Beni, my son. Vayomer, and Isaac innocently says, hey, Dad, Hine ha'esh ve'ha'etzim, I see the fire and the wood, ve'ayeh haseh le'olah, but where's the animal for the offering? Vayomer Avraham, Elohim yireh lo haseh le'olah beni. And Abraham says, perhaps hinting to Isaac, he is the sacrifice. God will see to the sacrifice, comma, my son, perhaps meaning which will be my son. Vayelchu shnehem yachdav, and the two of them walked on together. Vayavo el hamakom asher amar lo ha'elohim, and they came to the place that God had told them. Vayiven sham Avraham et hamizbeach, and Abraham set up the altar. Vaya'aroch et ha'itzim, and put the wood on it. Vaya'akod et Yitzchak beno, and he tied up his son Isaac. Vayasem oto al hamizbeach, and he put him on top of the altar, mima'al, on top of it, la'itzim, on top of the wood. Vayishlach Avraham et yado, and he put out his hand. Vayikach et hama'achelet, and he took the knife, lishchot et beno, to slay his son. Vayikra elav malach Adonai min hashamayim, and an angel, a messenger from God, called out from the heavens, Vayomer Avraham, Avraham, calling Abraham, Abraham. Vayomer Hineni, and once again Abraham says, Hineni, what do you want from me? Vayomer al tishlach yadcha el hana'ar, don't put your hand out against the boy. Va'al ta'aslo me'uma, and don't put a wound on him in any way. Ki ata yadati ki yireh Elohim, because now I know you hold God in reverence. Ata. Ve'lo hashachta et bincha, because you didn't withhold your son, et yechidacha mimeni, your only one from me. Vayisa Avraham et einav, and Abraham lifted up his eyes. Vayar, and he saw, vehine ayel echad ne'echaz bisfach. There was a ram stuck in the thicket by its horns. Vayelech Avraham, vayikach et ha'ayel, vayalehu le'olah tachat beno. And he got up and he took the ram and he sacrificed it in place of his son.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah Emeth, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Please be seated. We take a moment now in our service while the Torah is open to say a prayer for those who are ill and those who are in need of healing and wholeness, be it of their body, their mind, or their spirit. This morning, we especially call to mind in our prayers Nika Mandelberg, Daniel Minerva, Lori Schulman, Stephen Rice, Jordan Silverman, Richard Cohen, Nechama Leah, Karen Pine, Elliot Rudick, Erwin Young, Gabby Bursey, Allison Sack, Mort Cohen, Colleen Syatt, Arlene Schubert, Mindy Minerva, Norma Menaker, Megan Ashley Luciano, Patricia Roiger, Marilyn Jacobs, Gail Wyuker, Vi and Alfred Miller, Nadia McDonald, Ron Klug, Mirta Burston, Kenneth Tankus, Itu Fang, Adriana Puza, Spencer Gray Rothstein, Benita Apple, Helga Pravda Gans, Brody Scher, Hal Miller, Matt Gross, Dan Recht, and Linda Abrams. If there are others who could use a prayer for healing, we invite you to simply say their names aloud now. For those we've named, for those we haven't, and for those we name in our hearts, for all those who suffer with COVID, who are healing from fires and floods. Misha Berach, may the one who blessed our ancestors bless all those who are ill. May their doctors and nurses be skillful and compassionate. May those who care for them find support and comfort, and may they all be granted refuat hanefesh, refuat haguf, the complete healing of body and spirit. As together we say, Amen.
Amen. Abraham, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov, Mi sheberach imotenu, Sarah, Rivka, Leah, v'Rachel. May the one who blessed our mothers, may the one who blessed our fathers, hear our prayer. Out to those in pain. May the warmth of friendship ease our sorrow. Give us courage, give us faith, show us the way. Mi sheberach avotenu, mi sheberach imotenu. Hear our prayer. Hear our prayer.
Page 246, please rise for Hagbah.
La la
Please be seated. Beautiful, beautiful Haftarah we read on Rosh Hashanah, the story of Hannah. It is a struggle. It is a story of struggle, of hope and sincerity. Hannah desperately wants to have a child, but she struggles with infertility, watches women around her, her husband's other wife, able to have children, but not Hannah. So she goes to the temple and she introduces silent prayer into our liturgy. The priest thinks that she is drunk, but she is just so silently filled with pain and prayer and hope. And Hannah is this beautiful image to us that despite the challenge, she never gives up hope. She never stops believing that her life can be different. And in the end, she teaches others new ways. She introduces the high priest to silent prayer. And she ends up birthing into this world not only a child, but new opportunities. So we continue page 250 with the Haftarah for Rosh Hashanah.
Baruch, 247 for the bracha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nbiim tovim ורצה בדבריהם הנאמרים באמת ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בתורה ובמשה עבדו ובישראל עמו ובנביאי האמת והצדק.
ויהי איש אחד מן הרמתיים צופים מהר אפרים ושמו אלקנה בן ירוחם בן אליהו בן טוהו בן צור אפרתי ולא שתי נשים שם אחת חנה ושם השנית פנינה ויהי לפנינה ילדים ולחנה אין ילדים. And there was a man from Ramatayim Tzofim, from the hills of Ephraim, whose name was Elkanah, son of Yerocham, son of Elihu, son of Tohu, son of Tzuf, an Ephraimite. And he had two wives, one named Hannah, which might mean grace, and the other named Penina, or pearl. Penina had children, and Hannah had no children. And this man would go up from his town every year to worship at Shiloh and make offerings to the Eternal of Heaven's hosts. And there, Eli's two sons, Hophni and Pinchas, were priests of the Eternal. And on the day when Elkanah would make offerings, he would give portions to his wife Penina and to each of her sons and daughters. And to Hannah he would give a special portion because he loved Hannah and the Eternal had closed her womb. And her rival wife would taunt her cruelly to make her tremble with grief, for the Eternal had closed her womb. And so it was, year after year, when she would go up to the house of the Eternal, she taunted her and she would cry and not eat. And Elkanah, her husband, said to her, Hannah, why do you cry and why do you not eat? And why are you disheartened? Am I not worth more to you than 10 sons? And Hannah arose after the eating and drinking at Shiloh, while Eli the priest sat upon the throne near the doorpost of the temple of the Eternal. And she, bitter to the core, prayed to the Eternal, weeping and crying. And she vowed and said, Eternal of heaven's hosts, if you will truly see your servant's affliction, and remember me, and not forget your servant, and give your servant a son, I will give him to the Eternal all the days of his life, and no razor shall be lifted to his head. And as her praying before the Eternal intensified, Eli watched her mouth. And Hannah, she was speaking only in her heart. Though her lips were moving, her voice could not be heard, so Eli thought she was drunk. And Eli said to her, How long will you persist in drunkenness? Put away your wine, get rid of it. And Hannah answered and said, No, my lord, a woman of sorrow am I. I drank neither wine nor spirits, but poured out my soul before the Eternal. Do not take your servant for a worthless woman. All this time I have spoken from the depth of my anger, from the greatness of my grievance." Then Eli answered and said, "Go in peace, and may the God of Israel grant the request you have made." And she said, "May your servant find grace in your sight." And the woman went on her way, and she ate, and her face was no longer as it had been.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, צור כל העולמים, צדיק בכל הדורות, האל הנאמן, האומר ועושה, המדבר ומקיים, שכל דבריו אמת וצדק, על התורה ועל העבודה ועל הנביאים ועל יום הזיכרון הזה שנתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו לכבוד ולתפארת. על הכל אדוני אלוהינו אנחנו מודים לך ומברכים אותך, יתברך שמך בפי כל חי תמיד לעולם ועד, וברך אמת וקיים לעד. ברוך אתה אדוני מלך על כל הארץ, מקדש ישראל ביום הזיכרון.
Amen.
Please rise as we return the Torah to the Ark.
כי לקח טוב נתתי לכם תורתי, אל תעזובו.
עץ חיים היא למאחזים בה ותומכיה מאושר דרכיה דרכי נועם וכל נתיבותיה שלום. השיבנו השיבנו אדוני אליך והשיבנו
We remain standing for the call of the shofar.
The blessing. There's the blessing right there. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam אשר קידשנו במצוותיו וציוונו לשמוע קול שופר. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה.
Tikia Shivarim Teruah Tikia Tikia Shivarim Tikia Tikia Teruah Tikia Gedola Reshet Sefatenu Yera Lefanecha El Ram Venisa. Reshet Sefatenu Yera Lefanecha El Ram Venisa. Mevinu mazin mebayit umakshiv lekol et giyateinu. Utkabel berachamim uvratzon seder shovaroteinu.
Please be seated. Let's start with a kind of story, a Talmudic tale of emotional truths, and whether it's factual is really of little import. It was the 2nd century. The Roman Empire controlled 5 million square kilometers of the world, and they ruled over 65 million people. And the empire's brutality could not be hidden by magnificent statuary and awesome architecture. His name was Shimon Bar Yochai, and being subject to Roman domination, Shimon had nothing good to say about the government. In those days, and perhaps in these days also, that alone could be life-threatening. Unlike many others, however, Shimon Bar Yochai, one of the leading rabbis of the age, was indifferent to danger. It wasn't long before the emperor himself heard about Shimon's blatant contempt for the government. The result? Shimon and his son Eleazar were sentenced to death. In order to save his life, Shimon Bar Yochai took his son and hid inside a cave. And this being a Talmudic story, and Shimon Bar Yochai being the rabbi to whom the entirety of the Jewish mystical tradition is ascribed, Shimon and his son survived in the cave alone for 12 years. 12 years, they were sustained. A carob tree miraculously grew in the cave to feed them. A spring bubbled up from nowhere to give them water. Their clothing never wore out. And all they had was Torah to study. Not Netflix or Zoom or Instacart. Carob seeds, water, and Torah. It was perfect. The ancient rabbis who told this story were not living in a Disney world filled with sunshine and singing teapots. On the contrary, they knew tremendous trauma. They saw the temple destroyed and thousands of Jews slain. They saw death up close, and they carried that trauma with them. Because trauma is not just an event that takes place in the past and ends. Trauma leaves an imprint on the mind, the brain, and the body. And though they may not have had the word for it, they knew trauma. This story, with mystical trees and magical springs, it has no happy ending. Shimon and his son emerged from the cave after 12 years of isolation, and they entered a world that was going about its business, a world where everything seemed normal, as though nothing had changed. And they were enraged. Their hearts burned. And everywhere they looked was immediately consumed in fire, like some sort of Star Wars lasers coming from their eyes. And it wasn't normal, and it had to be stopped. And this, being a Talmudic story, a voice from heaven spoke out, saying, "Stop destroying my world." And God sent Shimon Bar Yochai and his son Eleazar back into the cave, where they stayed for another 12 months. Because though they had left the cave physically, they never had truly emerged from it spiritually or emotionally whole. A 2,000-year-old story, but does it feel kind of familiar? We all know of Ivan Pavlov, the Russian physiologist who in 1904 won the Nobel Prize for his work on conditioned responses. The man with the dogs and the bells, he conditioned the dogs to salivate every time they heard a bell by tying the bell to their feeding. Well, 20 years later, in 1924, the river in St. Petersburg burst its banks and flooded his basement laboratory, trapping his dogs in their cages for hours with no means of escape. After hours, not years, they were changed. Many laid around motionless, disinterested in what was going on around them, no longer playful. Others became vicious. Several refused to eat. And none of them salivated anymore when they heard the sound of the bell. Burned by stress, the dogs forgot what they had learned. A cave, a cage, the belly of a biblical whale, or alone in one's room, being trapped is stressful, and stress causes us to change. There is trauma that we carry from 18 months in our homes. How it feels venturing out, strange and new. How the landscape is constantly shifting and every day is an exercise in risk assessment. How could we not be changed by this? We see the world with different eyes, sometimes with eyes that sear and burn. We know that when faced with trauma, it's natural to shut down, to forget everything we've learned. And we don't like to talk about it. If we are honest, our culture tells us not to talk about it, to put on a good face and avoid anything revealing. How are you doing? People ask, and what do we say? I'm fine. I'm holding up. Many people have spoken of resilience, an important muscle to build for sure, but is it enough? Resilience is really about returning to your previous state like a rubber band can be stretched, but returns to its original size. Perhaps if COVID had only lasted a few weeks or months, we could go back to what we were. But we are not out yet because we may be done with COVID, but it's not done with us. So to go back to normal would imply that nothing important, nothing lasting has happened during this time. This is where growth comes in. Growth is not getting past it or getting over it. Growth is understanding ourselves in the world in a different way. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. Rabbi Harold Kushner captured this well when describing the growth he experienced after the death of his son. He said, "I am a more sensitive person, a more effective pastor, a more sympathetic counselor because of Aaron's life and death than I ever would have been without it. And I would give up all of those gains in a second if I could have my son back. If I could choose, I would forego all of the spiritual growth and depth which has come my way because of this experience, but I cannot choose." Such a hard truth. The truth that adversity can lead to growth, wanted or unwanted. It is tempting, maybe even easier, to try to reset the clock. But for people profoundly changed, to return to normal implies that nothing important has happened, but something really big has happened. Most of us are familiar with the term post-traumatic stress and how it disrupts sleep and normal functioning. It's wise for all of us to pay attention to the ways in which trauma has disrupted or challenged us. But there's another term that has more recently emerged, which suggests that trauma can also lead to growth. In fact, studies show that the majority of trauma survivors do not develop PTSD. A large number even report growth from their experience. Post-traumatic growth is the term they use to capture this phenomenon, defining it as the positive psychological change that is experienced as a result of the struggle with highly challenging life circumstances. Sometimes tremendous growth arises after trauma. Henri Matisse, the famous painter, was bedridden after cancer surgery, and it led to the creation of a new form of art for him in paper cuts. All of those iconic, colorful, bold shapes in blue and the swimming pool he created would never have been made were it not for the changes, the trauma of his illness. In the Jewish community, it has certainly led to new thinking and approaches. There's been tremendous talk about COVID keepers. What can we take from all the new ways we have created Jewish community over the past year and a half? As we've moved our congregation to virtual platforms, every meeting, every service, every program had to be rethought and re-engineered. We always believed at Shaari Emeth that if we streamed services, no one would come to services anymore. What we didn't understand was that more people would join us for prayer. For many of you, we now spend Shabbat dinner together after a hectic week, and we are there with you in your homes, even if you are not physically with us in shul. Our congregants now span the country, joining from Colorado, Florida, Arizona, and New York City. By going beyond our walls, we saw 10 local congregations come together for Shavuot study, and we meditated together with Temple Emmanuel in Toronto. We didn't choose this, but I suspect that each of us has grown in some way. Each of us has had something we learned that we will hold on to. Perhaps a deeper awareness of blessings, perhaps the necessity to slow down, perhaps the realignment of what is really, truly important in life. We are changed. Shimon Bar Yochai came out of his cave and was destructive and hurtful to all around him because he hadn't acknowledged how the experience changed him. And so, the Talmud story says that Shimon Bar Yochai and his son were sent right back into the cave for another 12 months, and now they had to choose how to spend their time, on Torah or on themselves. That choice would change everything, and they couldn't make that choice for each other. When they emerged next, Shimon's son Elazar was still traumatized and was setting fire everywhere he looked, yet Shimon himself had grown. He healed, and he became a source of healing. He emerged from the cave, and whenever his son set fire, Shimon would put it out. Shimon brought blessings to everyone around him. That became his Torah. And here we are, entering the 10 days of repentance, the spiritual cave of the holy days, to do tshuva. Tshuva does not mean repentance. Tshuva means return, to go back, but not to what was. We can't go back to what was, and not to go back to who we were. We can't do that either, but to return to the cave, as it were. The Holy Days calls us to a 10-day spiritual lockdown, so we can choose, and we can heal, and we can grow. Growth is a choice, and it is one that can only thrive with compassion. We cannot grow this year by belittling ourselves because of every misstep or missed opportunity. We will grow by learning to forgive ourselves and by treating ourselves with compassion, by forgiving ourselves, knowing that it was hard to be our best, perhaps especially hard to be our best to those we love. As we recite our prayers of tshuva these holy days, let us not beat our breasts, but gently caress our aching hearts. And let's retranslate the prayers of tshuva in ways that encourage us to grow by focusing on the good, on our potential, our joy, and our power. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha. What do I really value? It's so easy to be overwhelmed when I think of all that needs to be done and everyone who relies on me. I learn what matters most to me by asking what I can postpone. What can I take off my plate right now to make space for what I most care about? Al chet shechatanu lefanecha. What am I good at, whether sublime or ridiculous? What do I love creating? What new skill would I like to learn? Al chet shechatanu lefanecha. When have I paused to appreciate even the smallest of blessings, remembering that I have so many blessings? And we pray as a congregation, not just as individuals, for healing and growth. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha. How do we deepen the bonds between congregants so we really know that our lives are connected and that we matter? What experiences can we share with emotional openness and vulnerability? What ways can we have impact in this world? Our world is struggling right now. It does not need burning judgment, but it does need our healing compassion. We need our compassion so we can grow into our most whole, and holy selves. Shana Tovah.
Continue with Kolaynu, page 286. Please rise. Kolaynu l'shabeach ladon hakol, latet gedula liotzer bereshit, shelo asanu kigoyei ha'aratzot, velo samanu kemishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chalkenu kahem, Megor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch v'ne'emar v'hayadonai למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד, ושמו אחד, ושמו
Please be seated. Page 291. Our thoughts turn now to loved ones whom death has taken from us in recent days, and those who died at this season in years past. Our hearts open as well to the wider circles of loss in our community and wherever grief touches the human family. If you are here today remembering a loved one or we read their name, we invite you to rise and to remain standing when you hear the name until we all join in Kaddish together. This morning, we remember the more than 660,000 Americans and the 4.5 million people all over the world who have succumbed to COVID-19. We remember one whose family is in the period of Shiva, Michael Modell, brother of Bob Modell and brother-in-law of Rita Modell, and those whose families are in the 30-day mourning period of Shloshim, Ann Schernitz, John Evans, Martin Springer, and William Polino. And we remember those whose yahrzeit, the anniversary of their passing, falls this morning: Sidney Derish, Isidore Kolikow, Irene Laufer, Nathan Lomachinsky, Sylvia Moskowitz, Rabbi Richard Shackett, Irving Sobel, and Herbert Weiss. Zichronam Livracha, may their memories be a blessing in this new year and always. We rise now, page 292, for the words of the mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayei u'vyomei u'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, b'agala u'vizman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevarach le'alam u'lalmei almaya. Yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar, v'yitromam, v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar, v'yitaleh, v'yithalal, shemei dekudsha, brichu, le'ela u'le'ela, mikol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran ve'alma v'imru, amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shamaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yeshei tevel, ve'imru, amen.
Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, amen. Tkiya gedolah. Shana Tovah Tikatenu, Shana Tovah Tikatenu, Tikatenu, V'techatenu, Shana Tovah Tikatenu, Shana Tovah Tikatenu, Tikatenu, V'techatenu.
Shana Tova.
Havana Shira, Shir Hallelujah, Shir Hallelujah. 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 Havana Shira, Shir Hallelujah. Havana Shira, Shir Havana Shira, Shir Hallelujah, Shir Hallelujah. Havana Shira, Shir Hallelujah, Shir Hallelujah.
Thank you all very much. Thank you so much. It was great being with you. Shana Tova.